One of the things that has made me sad, I think, in my conversations with college students about sex on campus is often they don't even know their reasons for having sex. They'll say things like, oh, it's just what people do in college. A typical story that I got about a sexual encounter at college, whether it was a man or a woman, went something like, we were at a party, we were getting really trashed, we were drinking, and then suddenly we're having sex in someone's room.
I was with someone for a long time and living with them and thinking that it would grow into something that we're going to finally get married, and it didn't happen. After 6 years of being with someone, we were going to be engaged, but
it never
happened.
There,
so
right?
I'm waiting when I should have just let his butt go because my husband was waiting somewhere around there.
When you are cohabitating with somebody, you are essentially playing the role of a wife for free. Like, why should he have an effort to make you his wife when you cooking, when you cleaning, when you dropping it like it's hot whenever he want it hot? See?
Yes,
why get married?
Abstinence-only programs really are very limited. They often identify relationships in very heteronormative ways. And on top of that, they will perpetuate ideas about gender dynamics and gender roles that often see women as sort of the pious, upholding of virtue and virginity and purity, and men as sort of the aggressor and entitled to sexual behaviors or sexual activity.
Open relationships. That's what it's called when you're in a relationship, but then you have relationships with other people too. We aren't biologically wired to be monogamous, men especially, and open relationships allow you to buck that, as it were. Open relationships also allow you to free yourself from the patriarchy, as it were, as women are seen as free sexual beings with as much autonomy as men have historically been granted to have. The notion of men spreading their seed is kind of an oversimplified and misogynistic take on our species. And with open relationships, women too can spread their seed. It's liberating for women to be seen as equal sexual participants rather than the object of men's whims. As a scientist, I'm here to ruin everybody's good time and to tell you that the assumption that male and female sexuality can be pretty much treated the same is in direct opposition to our biology. The male body produces millions of sperm every day. A woman produces 1 egg per month. Women have carefully selected a mate, and their hormones and physiology favor careful selection. Men don't need to be as selective because they are constantly able to have sex. Biologically, our hormones, our brains, and our neurochemistry is designed to help us form valuable relationships with members of the opposite sex in order to perpetuate the species and pass on our genes. So if we're considering doing away with the cultural construct of monogamy, I wonder why we're trading it in for a cultural construct that frankly is false, because men and women are just not the same. Take-home message: lean into your biology. While I get that having sex with lots of people can be fun, I worry that open relationships are fostering a false sense of liberation from our sexual biological nature. I am advocating for leaning into our biology. And while I understand that there are theoretical reasons for equating male and female sexuality, it's a cultural construct to do so, and one which is battling not just the patriarchy, but our own biology as well. And I know that some women are engaging in open relationships because they feel like it's the only way that they can be with a particular man. And I know that many women are left feeling empty after operating under the male-supported notion that sex with someone you're not connected with is enough. It seems that my video on open relationships struck a chord with many people. I actually say things in my video that are wrong, so I am willing to admit I'm wrong. A study that was sent to me cites that 20% of people have experienced consensual non-monogamous relationships, and about 3 to 5% of people are currently in consensual non-monogamous relationships. That's a lot of people. I want to take this opportunity to legitimately apologize if I presented a perspective that is in any way homophobic, implies that these kinds of relationships are less legitimate, less healthy, that they're immoral, that they increase your risk of STDs. I have added to the stigmatization of a population which is already marginalized, and for that, I am very sorry.
We had the chat
right.
to establish where things were, and then it became clear that you were kind of more wanting no strings, and I was like, that doesn't make me feel great.
Okay.
And also you were in, I think you weren't in a great place.
No, because I'd had a polyamorous relationship with one lady, but others on the side, and the one lady I'd had...
How many others on the side? Sorry.
It differed. I think at one point there was about 7. But
7?
Mostly about 3 or 4. 7?
It's like 1 every day of the week.
Sometimes more.
This was my first open relationship in the beginning.
Yeah.
So,
my second one.
Yes. So James was coming from a place of experience, and I was like, what is this? Let's do, yeah. It sounded really good to me. I wanted to do it, but here were my rules. I said, James, I don't want to know who you're sleeping with. I don't want to know who they are. I don't know what you've been doing. Just keep it on the down low. It's acceptable, but don't tell me.
So what were the reasons for not wanting to know those things?
I was terrified. I don't want to know. I don't want to know that you were like, you know, the girls or like getting intimate and touching. And...
So it's this idea of ignorance is bliss?
Yeah, like I was like, look, I don't want to know, but the thing that also was a safety net was I said, I don't want you to be cute and coupley with them. So it's like no cuddling, no sleepovers. Like I don't want them to like have that moment where they wake up in the morning, because I couldn't have those moments with you like as much as I wanted to.
Some women are engaging in open relationships because they feel like it's the only way that they can be with a particular man.
I was like, if he starts dating a girl on the regular and they're like being cute and coupley, then what is my significance to the relationship? What makes me the most important? My other rule, which I really held on to, which I just remembered, was if you're going to have sex with a girl in your bed, change your sheets. Yeah. And that was something that I was really adamant on, but you really didn't have... You had like one good pair of bed sheets.
Yeah, that type of stuff doesn't really bother me so much.
It bothered me because I was like, if I smell her perfume on the pillow, if I see a strand of her hair, like that's going to trigger everything while I'm with James, and I'm going to be like, oh my God, this is breaking the don't ask, don't tell, I don't want to know rule. Mm-hmm. So I did everything I could to make rules that would protect me.
There's a growing number of Americans who are reconsidering whether monogamy is a necessity in a relationship. And researchers found that some couples claim having an open marriage actually saved their marriage. Now, do you believe this?
I gave my husband plenty of opportunity to walk away. I explained to him, and he saw that I was very jealous and very crazy. And so this open marriage thing wouldn't work for me because I would just lose my mind. And I do believe honesty is the best policy.
Did he want to have an open marriage?
Well, he knows that he couldn't be in a relationship with me because I'm very, very, very jealous.
I see.
Well, I get really emotionally attached.
Yeah.
So an open relationship.
Jealous?
I can be jealous, but the problem is if we had an open relationship, I would probably get emotionally connected and attached to that other person.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's healthy
and then
for
you
a
might burn your
marriage.
clothes,
I also think there's only
stuff.
one person in a relationship that wants an open relationship.
I don't think it works. I don't think it works. I mean, the French, it doesn't even work for the French, and they created infidelity.
Just don't be married then.
They invented it, and it doesn't work for them.
It doesn't work.
Yes, but they
Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, who famous philosophers, who basically made a deal to have an open marriage. Jealous, furious with each other when the other one cheated. They weren't even married to each other. And they made this deal. We're going to do it, and then they didn't go along.
And you know what happened?
They're French.
How did he know you would have been? That's a hard thing to just float by like Thrinder.
I'm pretty open to like try new things as long as I trust you and you're honest with me. Like I was like, I'll test it out. You know, you don't know until you try something. But I was definitely really weary of it because I was like, I don't want it to feel like, one, I'm not good enough by myself, and two, like that you're doing this behind my back.
I hear it's hard for a couple to find the women.
Yeah,
as you will.
They call them unicorns. That's what they call them. Uniforms.
Finding a woman who's willing to go into a heterosexual couple as that extra female.
Yeah, it just was like there weren't a lot of those out there. I wasn't really interested in like hooking up with another guy, but I was like, this will be fun to try out. And like, so we like had talked to like a couple and ended up, you know, going and meeting them for drinks and stuff. And like, all the time, like we were on like a group chat with them, like, and all the time it was like, all right, everyone, we're even on this first date, we're not going to go very far because we're just getting to know each other. We're going to be very careful, like dipping our toes in the water here because like this could end in disaster. And we end up going to drinks with them and then like hang out with them after at our place, and we're like having some wine and whatnot. And then like each of us start making out with the other person, and then out of nowhere, the dude like, and I'm like, ugh. Like that was not part of the rules. First of all, it was like moving at a good pace until like this guy did that, and then I was like, ugh. And then like I look over at his girlfriend and like she's mad, and so then I said something real awkward to ruin the mood, which I do.
What was your man thinking having another guy going down?
He didn't care. I mean, I don't know. He was busy anyway, but like, and then it was like real awkward, and then they left like right away, and I remember like texting her and being like, hey, I just want you to know that like. I was pretty uncomfortable, but I just didn't know what to do. Like I was so in shock, and it happened so fast that I was like, oh God, you know, that's why I just like yelled out something awkward and unsexy, you know, and it worked. And then, and then like, she was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said that, because he was like blaming you for it. Cause I guess they got in a fight once they left. Then I come to find out like it was all his idea to do this stuff, and she didn't even really want to do this stuff. And I was like, well, it was kind of my ex's idea to do this stuff too. But like, I was into it to a degree, but like not that.
Because they feel like it's the only way that they can be with a particular man.
In the late 60s came a challenge to every traditional idea of love and marriage, the sexual revolution. Its main target was the taboo on sex before marriage. Its great ally, the pill. Swinging London was the trailblazer of the new permissive culture. It attracted young women eager to break with convention and lose their virginity, like Rosie Boycott.
I desperately wanted to be cool. I wanted to be a hip, swinging chick. I wanted to be cool, so of course I pretended that I'd done this lots of times before.
This sexual permissiveness, however, came at a price, and it suited the men far more than the women. It often led to deception, regret, and heartbreak. The glamorous world of rock stars, photographers, and models was not all it seemed.
On the surface of it, people would say, oh, this is great for everybody, but actually what was happening was that women were expected to favor free love all the time, and that if they didn't want it, then they were regarded as straight and square, and those were the kind of words you used. And so you would be seen as uncool, which was truly a bad thing to do. So actually women had no maneuverability. In many ways, I think women were in an even further bind. And I'm not saying that this was like saying, oh, you know, you need to preserve your virginity in order to make yourself worth something to the person you marry. But it was an exploitation, and everyone was trying something out. And in a way, you know, for blokes, yes, it was like arriving in a sweet shop, and the sweets were free.
When Rosie Boycott met American journalist John Steinbeck Jr. in London, he represented everything she rejected as a feminist. He was a macho man on a motorbike, dangerous, hard drinking, and a womanizer. Yet she fell madly in love with him.
I felt a very fraudulent feminist. It was very complicated actually for me, because suddenly this was more important, and that was quite frightening. And I was prepared to do anything, go anywhere, say anything, follow anything, and it's totally sideswiped me. And I would at moments kind of pull back and think, but hang on a minute, you know, you've just spent quite a lot of time of your life trying to say that this is not what should happen. You know, one shouldn't be beholden to a bloke like this. But actually I was. He liked my independence from him, that I wasn't a kind of doormat woman. And we certainly experimented with, I know once or twice there were one more person in the bed, and he slept with other people, and I used to just bite my lip. Because at that point I was kind of confident enough, I think, about how much he liked me, but it was hideous and I hated it. As the relationship started to nosedive, he having affairs, I found it absolutely, totally painful. And I mean, I tried on one occasion having an affair myself, but it didn't help at all. Actually, all one's feminist credentials were useless against that level of unhappiness and misery about that. And I did think perhaps marriage would be an answer, and that, yeah, there was a wonderful little voice or loud voice in my head saying, this might really sort it out. You know, once you're married, it'll be okay.
Rosie and John Steinbeck Jr. never did marry. The 70s feminist icon became a successful magazine editor and the first woman in Britain to edit a national broadsheet. She is now happily married.